fun show today as Westmoreland head coach E.J. Perry joins the show. We also catch up with Bree Ellis and Kit Brown and Eli Rice following their wins last night over Gallatin. We hand out the 221 Players of the Week and rankings.
This is the Full Court Press Podcast with Zach Womble, covering high school sports all across Sumner County. Now here's your host, Zach Womble.
Hey everybody, welcome into another episode of the Full Court Press Podcast. You see the hoops, so you know it's basketball time here in the Womble household and Sumner County. Up first on today's episode, I was able to catch up with Westmoreland head coach E.J. Perry earlier today to talk about the Eagles and their fast start to this season. We welcome in Westmoreland head coach E.J. Perry to the Full Court Press Podcast today. Coach Perry, thanks so much for doing this morning. How are you?
Doing well, man. How are you? Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. Wanted to try to get a little Westmoreland love on the show. You know, I'm not sure that maybe my other coworkers know about your resume, Coach. I mean, we put out the Fab 15 for Main Street Preps, and Westmoreland was nowhere to be found. Do you take exception to maybe the lack of respect that you're getting around the mid-state?
Well, man, I know this isn't going to bode too well with most, but I'm a big Alabama fan. But I'm a bigger Nick Saban fan, and he likes he likes the term rat poison. So he gets a lot of rat poison when people talk about how good Alabama is going to be. But if you remember before the SEC championship, Georgia was like a 2-touchdown favorite or whatever, and he said, "Man, that the rat poison that you guys put out was yummy this week." I just try to light a fire under our kids. We like to play that. That's really good bulletin board material right there for us not to be on that list, even though we beat a couple of the teams on that list. It's good for us. I enjoy. They enjoy getting that fire and feeding that fuel for us. So it's all good. We don't resent it, but we do use it.
Fair enough, Coach. Yeah, you mentioned the teams that you beat on that list, mainly being Brentwood. You're 15-3 now, having a really good season. I believe you've won maybe 11 in a row. What's kind of been the secret to your success so far, especially considering you haven't really been at full strength?
Well, I mean, the kids do a great job day in and day out grinding. I mean, we want to hang our hat on the defensive end, and that's obviously, and we haven't done a fantastic job, I think, this year in its entirety. But we're really making strides. We haven't been healthy and full tilt, and we're still not completely healthy. But I mean, we've got what we're going to have, barring any more injuries for the rest of the year. The kids that are out now are going to be out, and they're young kids. We got 2 freshmen that were playing a little bit. One of them in particular, Peyton Crump, was playing quite a bit, and she actually tore ACL a couple weeks ago, so she's out. So that sent us up a little bit, but we're getting kids back, and it's trying to mesh together again. We had 3 starters out all summer, so we played without 3 starters there. And then we get back, and we're kind of full tilt, and we have 2 more go down. And it's just we've been kind of just we haven't gotten to gel like we really want to. And so I mean, it's going to be a process, and that's what we talk about. We got to climb that ladder every day. We haven't peaked yet, and we want to peak at the right time, and we just got to make those strides every day. I think we'll get there, and we made some adjustments in the last week that's helped us improve a lot. So hopefully we can keep grinding and keep working hard and get to where we want to get to.
Coach, you mentioned the freshmen that you're having to play. Westmoreland is known for its girls basketball. Your middle school program is coming off a regular season championship season. I don't know. Maybe I can't recall at the time how they finished or how they fared in the middle school tournament. But my point is, Coach, basketball seems to be at a good place in Westmoreland. What can you attribute that to?
Man, there's a great tradition here, and I mean it is. It's a great town, and they take girls basketball in particular serious, and I think that starts way back with Coach Bobby Hopkins. He did a great job. He made it to the state tournament 5 times, had some really good teams, had some really good players. And, I mean, that tradition stayed strong. And then I think there was a couple coaches in between. And then Coach Abner was here for 20 years. She did a great job. She worked at it, and I worked under her for 3. And, you know, we do some things style-wise differently, but the tradition's always been there. The support from the community's always been there. And that's really cool to see. And you see it all the way down into youth programs. I always tell people Westmoreland's kind of a unique place because I can look down into the second and third grade and pretty well tell you who I'm going to end up coaching in 6 or 7 years. Like it's a unique place, and you get to have your hand in, you know, some of the youth sports sometimes. And that's cool, man. It is really cool to be able to have that tradition and that culture that we've kind of built that's remained for this long.
You're a Westmoreland man of your own, you know, someone who was a standout basketball player for the Eagles program. Here you are now leading the Lady Eagles program to a really good season. You've done really well in your years there coaching. How much pride does it give you just being able to be the head coach of this Lady Eagles program?
Well, it's very special to me, and I've been very blessed. I've lived here, grew up here my entire life. My family's lived here, grew up here. We're Westmoreland people. And it means that much more to you to be able to come back to your hometown. I'll be honest, in college, I wasn't sure when I was playing, and I didn't know where I was going to end up. I knew I wanted to coach, and honestly, I had zero plans of going into girls basketball. And I was going to start as an assistant, going to do boys, you know, go that route. And the athletic director job, the athletic director that was at Westmoreland left and took a job at Station Camp as an admin. And the principal called me, and I was actually an assistant coach at Portland for the boys, helping Coach Carney, and I helped him all June. And Mr. Duffer, our principal here, called me and said, "Hey, I've got a athletic director position. It's history as well. The only catch is it's assistant coaching girls basketball." But man, I fell in love with the game. It's a really pure game. I like the style. I like how it's not that it's different than the boys' game, but it has its own uniqueness, and I really like how pure that game is. I think a coach can have a little bit more impact on the girls' side sometimes than the boys in a way. But I've enjoyed my time here. I enjoyed coaching girls as an assistant those 3 years, and then when Coach Abner left, I had a relationship with the kids. I liked the culture, and we rolled with it.
Coach, you're coming off a 61-29 victory over Greenbrier, but a much closer game at Smith County. Your first district game earlier this last week. Excuse me. What'd you learn about district play in this new district, and you know, how did that game shake out at Smith County? I saw it was a 3-point win, but just tell our listeners, you know, how you came out with the W.
We were very fortunate, first and foremost, to leave there with a win. We did not play up to our standards, up to our expectations, and we talked about that. It's the new district. It's different. It's a different style that way. It's a different referee association, and the game's kind of just styled differently. So where we could usually get a little bit more physical in our old league, it's a little bit more handsy going east, and it's something that we've got to adjust to more, for sure. We got in early foul trouble. We didn't handle it the best, but it had us kind of having to play a different style than we were wanting to. We couldn't be as aggressive as we wanted to be because of that foul trouble. We were fortunate, and we grinded it out and found a way to win. We've got to improve, I think, defensively, you know, off the ball stuff. We weren't very disciplined. But Smith County is a really good team, and it was a different environment too, man. We haven't played in that gym before. Our kids had never walked in that gym, and it was kind of a unique place. We haven't played against any of these teams really in the past, so there's no history there. So it's all new scouts, it's all new stuff, it's all new personnel, and we've got to adjust and, you know, do a better job, especially this first time around, figuring these teams out before we get there.
Yeah, you probably took on the second best team in your district in Smith County. I know they were 10-4 going into that game, so a tough place to play. Does a game like that help you kind of teach or talk to the girls about keeping it reeled in, one game at a time? Because, EJ, let's be honest, you're in a district with 4 teams. That means you're automatically going to make the region tournament. Competition doesn't look, from my end, doesn't look to be the same maybe as it was in previous years when you're facing the metro schools. So maybe you have an easier road to a sub-state game. Does a game at Smith County help you kind of reel in emotions and keep it tight and remind the girls of what's at stake?
Well, we talk about all the time, man. When we talk about a record, we're 0-0 every game. We're 0-0. We try not to get too high, never get too low. We got to stay even keeled. I think there's a lot to be said good about having a close game occasionally. I mean, it keeps you on your toes. It keeps you from knowing that, hey, if my butt doesn't come ready to play and I'm not focused and I'm not ready to go take care of business, I can get caught at any time by anybody. And, I don't really think that game was a lack of us. I mean, Smith County's a good team. They're pretty athletic. They've got a couple kids that can score. And it was a home game on the road, and that helps too. But, I mean, there's a lot of things that we could take away from that game, definitely moving forward, that we grew from, learned from, late game situation. I think we did a pretty good job scheduling a tough schedule, especially early. I mean, we went Beach twice, Summit twice, Loretto, Oakland, Clarksville Northwest twice. And our kids approach those games, hey, if our butt's not ready to play, we're about to get thumped out here. And we don't approach every game that way. And that's what we're really trying to grow. And we've got some young guys that are playing some and some guys that, are having to grow up. They've got to approach every game with the same mentality. And we don't always do that. That's the kind of the things that we keep stressing. You got to approach it the right way mentally every game. You can't play the scoreboard. You can't play level of competition and things like that. You got to approach it the right way.
Coach Perry, we go an entire interview without me bringing up arguably the best player in the county. So I'll let you go on this question. What has it been like for you watching Elena Eckel lead this team both on and off the floor this year? What does she bring your team, and why did she end up at a school like Anderson University when a lot of other big schools wanted her talents?
I have had that question several times. I'll address the college choice first. First off, Elena's a fantastic player. She's been great for us. She's a hard worker. She eats, breathes, and sleeps it. It's kind of a rarity that you can discuss X and O things with a high school player. And I mean, she gets the game. She's got a really high basketball IQ. She had a lot of good offers. She had a lot of Division I offers that she turned down. She chose Anderson, I think, in a large part. He was the first guy that really started recruiting her hard her sophomore year, early in her sophomore year. And she's a loyal kid. And I mean, she bought into his loyalty, and he kept contact, and he called her and checked up with her regularly. She had Lipscomb, UT Martin, Tech, Murray State. And I'm going to miss some here, just spitball.
Memphis, I heard Memphis wanted her as well.
Memphis, yeah. I mean, Memphis did. Memphis offered her. But I think she, small town feel. That's a far away, but I think that played into it some. I think she thinks she can go, immediately and make an impact there, and I think that played into it some. But watching her grow and how she handled that decision very maturely was a big deal. She's really good for us, man. She's been a good leader. She's one of our hardest workers. Like, she's in the gym. She's a gym rat. She loves it, man. And I'm excited to see what that kid does post, at high school. And but I know what's cool about her, man, is she's super honed in and she's focused on what we're trying to do now. She's not looking ahead. She's living in the moment, which is good.
Very good. Well, Coach Perry, maybe I can get Elena on the show. Maybe you can help facilitate for that, just so she can kind of come on and tell her side of the story. But regardless, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Best of luck as you continue out through the rest of the season. I know there's not a lot of games left, but I know I'm sure your girls and your team will be ready for district play. But again, thank you so much, EJ Perry, for joining us on the Full Court Press podcast.
I appreciate you guys having me, man.
Again, that was EJ Perry, Westmoreland's girls basketball coach. Really want to thank him for joining us today to just drop some heat, drop some knowledge, and drop some good nuggets about his basketball team. 15-3 on the season, looking like someone to be reckoned with in Class 2A. You know, if you just look at their district, you look at their region, there's not a lot of pushback in that. And so when you're looking at a Region 3, when you're facing teams like a Smith County or a York Institute that happens to be probably their two best, you think that Westmoreland stands a good chance of playing Region 4 in that sub-state round. But we move on in the show to highlight our players of the week, something that we do each and every week. It's a lot of fun for us just to kind of go through the numbers, talk to the athletes, and just kind of get in their heads and see what they're talking about. And this week, for this week's Player of the Week, we'll start out with Bree Ellis, who scored a healthy 35 points last night in their big victory over Gallatin, including 8 threes. She was remarkable last night. I was actually able to catch up with Bree to talk to her about her big game. So let's hear what Bree Ellis has to say following the big win over Gallatin.
35 points tonight. Is that a career high for you?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What was your mentality coming into this ball game?
Just for us to be number one in the district, for us to go hard and give it all like I do each game.
Yeah. This was a 31-27 ball game at one point, and then you obviously ended up rolling in the second half. What changed for you in the second half as a team and individually?
Well, I don't know. It's at halftime. I noticed the score was close. I just had to get myself together and the whole team because we was getting out rebounded and out hustled, and we wasn't playing any defense. So we had to step it up.
Yeah, 4 big threes from her in the fourth quarter to help lead them to that 74-53 victory. Beach now in first place at 3-0 in league play, led a lot by Bree Ellis. Our other player of the week this week is going to be Pope John Paul Sr. Connor Turf. He scored 15 points in their win over Father Ryan on January 15th. Listen, this player of the week honor for Pope John Paul could have gone to one of 3 guys. But when you win as close as they did, it looks like Connor's big threes and big night was the difference in the ball game. But Joseph Bills scoring 10 points, getting a lot of steals on the defensive end was big as well. But Connor has kind of been Pope's steady shooting, steady force so far this season. But they're a really good basketball team. You know, I actually have them ranked second in our rankings that we'll get into later on in the show. But a really good win for Pope Prep at home against Father Ryan when they didn't play well in the first half, but came out in the second half and established their dominance and was able to get a big region win to improve them at the time to 3-2 in Division II play. And, you know, my coworker Tyler Palmatier said it best last night when he covered them at CPA. Every win in Division II is just so critical, so important. So for them to get a win over Father Ryan, thanks in large part to Connor's 15 points was big for Pope Prep. So again, our players of the week this week, Bree Ellis for dropping 35 against Gallatin and Connor Turf for dropping 15 over Father Ryan. Moving into the staple of this show and what this show is built on is our 2-2-1 full court press segment, which is 2 games I'm looking at, 2 players, and 1 winner for the week. And quite simply, we're going to a school that I haven't highlighted yet in our 2-2-1, and that is the Portland men's basketball team traveling on the road this Friday night at Creekwood in a huge district game. Listen, this is a Portland team that is coming off a loss on the road at Greenbrier in a very critical game, their first loss in district play, a game that they held the lead in the fourth quarter before ultimately losing to the Bobcats. But, you know, going on the road to play Creekwood, a team that they've already beat once this season. They beat them back on December 3rd by 10, 47-37. I talked to Daryl Travis, and he just told me simply this is just going to be a grinded out, tough game to win, but one that he feels his team can win. You know, if they're able to get to 4-1, sweep the season series with Creekwood, they've still got Greenbrier coming to their coming to their home later on in the season. Portland sets themselves up nicely to still potentially win that regular season district championship. So that is one of my 1 games I'm looking at this week on the road, Portland at Creekwood on Friday night. And then next Tuesday, we've got Station Camp versus Hendersonville girls. These are 2 teams that I don't really know anything about. I'm not sure who they are just yet. And so I think them facing off against one another is obviously one that I want to look at this week because I think it's going to tell me a lot of what I need to know between the 2 squads. So both, you know, Station Camp 10-7, 1-2 in league play, Hendersonville 12-6, 2-1. coming off a really bad loss to Beach last week. So just anxious to see that game, figure out maybe who they are a little bit more on the girls' side of things. My two players this week, one of them actually is playing in my two games, and that is Chase Runyon, sophomore for the Portland Panthers. He's actually averaging 16 points a game this season, 16 points coincidentally enough over the last four. He's just been really good. As a sophomore, the game is starting to slow down for him a little bit. He got a lot of PT as a freshman last year, and maybe it was fast for him, but he showed signs, he showed promise of being one of the best players on the floor for Portland. And that has carried over into this year. I was talking to Daryl Travis, just kind of what's been the secret to his success. And, as a freshman, he got a lot of his points off the catch. And he's a good shooter. But he learned this offseason that if you want to be a mainstay scorer for any length or any particular game and be consistent, you got to learn to move without the basketball. And Daryl Travis says that has been his biggest area of progression this offseason. It's just moving without the ball, scoring without the ball, getting open, finding gaps, finding seams, finding cuts, and that has allowed him to flourish. So Chase Runyon is one of my players to watch for this week, and he will be a key contributor if the Portland Panthers are going to get a road win at Creekwood this Friday night. My other player to look out for is actually Beach Junior Riley Long. Riley is one of the best low block players in the county. You saw that graphic there where Emma Wright was listed. That's partly my fault that I sent it to JP, because in what I said was that, I made the statement that I thought Riley was one of the best low block players in the county. I think Emma Wright for Westmoreland would have something to say about that. But listen, Riley Long is as good as they come. She can rebound. She gets those scrappy points, and is someone who you can count on in the low block for Beach. And I think is a big reason to their success. They're 3-0 in league play, and I think Riley Long has a lot to do with that. Just a really good basketball player, a junior. They got a lot of good playing time last year as a sophomore, and has just continued that progression, continued that dominance on the low block, and is someone who can be attributed for Beach's success. And, while I don't have any audio to back that up from head coach Lauren Elkins, she will tell you that, they need Riley in order to go and get to where they want to get to. And so it's been really fun watching her progression. The younger sister of Jackson Long, who happens to be Beach boys basketball player on the football team. The daughter of Kevin Long, former Titans standout and Florida State standout. So there's a lot of good athletic genes running through that Long blood, and she's certainly holding up her end of the bargain, playing really good basketball for the Beach Lady Bucks this year. So again, Chase Runyon, Riley Long, my two players to look out for this week. And then my one winner. I wanted to go, just kind of put myself out there this week, and you see it right there. And I've got the Pope Prep boys over Brentwood Academy, who happens to be our second-ranked team in our Fab 15. Brentwood Academy, they said they're waiting for Beach to slip up so that they can move them in to that number one spot. They're a good team. They beat Pope Prep by 15 the first time these two teams met at Brentwood Academy. But again, I think this is a Pope Prep team that is kind of flying under the radar a little bit, and one that I think is poised to get an upset. I talked to Joseph Bills after their game against Father Ryan. He said simply, when you think of D2 basketball, Pope Prep is not the first team that you're going to think of. So we enjoy that underdog mentality. We enjoy that underdog role and trying to shock some teams. But I tell you right now, if they come out and they beat Brentwood Academy, they will no longer shock anybody because that would be one of the best wins in the mid-state. So I'm going out on a limb a little bit this week. Pope Prep boys over Brentwood Academy. And just a little bit of just an added point to that. I saw Pope Prep's loss last night on the road at CPA. And listen, CPA got a bucket to go up by 2. But you could go back and watch the video, but I think the refs helped decide that game. Listen, I'm not saying Pope Prep would have, say Father Ryan got their free throw off the foul, make the shot to go up by 3. I'm not saying Pope Prep would have sank a 3 to send it in overtime. But what I am saying is the refs did not give them that opportunity because they called the weakest intentional foul I've ever seen by anybody, meaning not only did CPA get the bucket, they got 2 free throws and the ball with 3.9 seconds left, essentially sealing victory for CPA. I make no mistake about it. I make no bones about it. Like TSSAA, the refs, you got to be better than that, man. You can't be handing games over to opponents on weak stuff like that. You know, I see technicals called on players showing emotion. You know, I just think that these refs are, you know, some are, not all are bad. Not all are bad. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I mean, to blatantly not allow a team to have the opportunity to shoot to tie the game is refereeing malpractice. All that said, I don't think there's any accountability in that profession. So I'm not sure it's ever going to matter. No one's probably ever going to say anything to those refs and be like, hey, you got to be better. What'd you see there? Why'd you call the intentional foul knowing the situation of the game? I'm sorry, I had to get that off my chest. And if Bernard Childress of the TSSAA, the Referee Association, has any problem with it, you know where you can find me. I mean, listen, I'll tell you the same thing. I mean, it's just, I don't know. You can tell I'm worked up about it. And I just think taking away the opportunity for Pope to tie that game, not saying they would have tied it, but taking away the opportunity and handing it to CPA it's just bad. And you got to be better. So just be better. That's my 2 cents on that. Closing out the show today, as I always do, we give out some rankings. I'm just going to run down the list. I think these rankings are pretty fair. You know, last episode I said I wasn't really sure who was where, but I think I got a better grip on it this week. And starting with the girls, my number one team, no doubt about it, Westmoreland, 15-3 on the season, 1-0 in league play. They have tested themselves this year. They've beaten Brentwood. They've beaten Beach twice. They've beaten Gallatin twice. They've beaten Clarksville Northwest. They've beaten Smith County on the road. They have tested themselves week in and week out. And why they are not in our Main Street Preps Fab 15, I have no idea. Because they certainly should be in there. You know, I don't know if they're not getting love because they're a 2A team or what. But look at the teams that they've beaten, and then tell me that they don't belong in the top 15, because I would just say you're wrong. My number 2 team, Beach High School, 11-10, 3-0, coming off a huge win over Gallatin, who I have as my number 3 team, and then another 30-point win last week over Hendersonville, who I have as my number 4 team. Again, Westmoreland number 1 because they've shown it on the court, beating Beach twice, and as well as some other teams. So I feel confident putting them as my number 1 team here in the county for this week's episode of the Full Court Press. And just rounding out my rankings really quick, you've got Westmoreland 1, Beach 2, Gallatin 3, Hendersonville 4, Station Camp 5, Pope Prep 6, Portland 7, White House 8, and Merrill Hyde at 9. Moving over to my boys' rankings, I don't think there's any debate who my number 1 team for the boys are, and that's the Beach Buccaneers, 22-0, coming off a win over Gallatin to get them at 3-0 in league play. Listen, games have gotten a lot tighter over the stretch as of late, and but you know what? Beach needs those games. Beach needs those opportunities to play in tight games, and I actually was able to catch up with Kit Brown and Eli Rice following last night's win over Gallatin. So let's hear what they've got to say just on the hot start and keeping the main thing.
I haven't had a chance to speak with you since you've been here at Beach, but you guys are 22-0 now, and obviously games have become a little bit tighter over the last couple of months. I guess, you know, what's been the key to, I guess, your seamless transition in this offense?
I say just defense translating into offense has been the key. Just pushing the ball, hitting the open man, and that's been taken care of.
Yeah. You know, I know that Eli basically steps into a role that Caleb left last year. We've talked about that, but just from your coach's eyes, what does he bring to your team?
He brings somebody that's really hard to guard, who has a high basketball IQ, who shot blocker, who protects the rim and gets a lot of rebounds. And, you know, he just takes, like I told you earlier this year, he takes our team to another level.
Very good. Eli, you know, this is a basketball team that has some very big games coming up. You know, I think you go Hunters Lane, McGavick, and then maybe Station Camp before you get 2 big road games. You know, someone who is a leader on this team, and I asked Tyler the same question. How do you navigate this final stretch for these guys as you get ready to go into the district tournament?
District play is always hard. It's been hard since I've been playing in this district, and I think just if we stay together, focus on the main goal, it'll all work out.
How do you keep the main thing?
Just basketball. That's all I look at it. We just playing basketball, having fun.
There you go. He's just playing basketball, having fun, and it sure looks like it as they are 22-0 and 3-0 in league play. Again, they're coming off some tight ball games. They were used to winning by 30, maybe 40, getting close to 50. But here you are when you get into league play. It's just not going to be that easy. It's not going to be that simple. But they know that, and it seems like they've got a good head on their shoulders. They've got a coach that keeps them checked in and reeled in and keeps them excited and ready for the game. So I'm eager to see how the rest of the season shakes out for Beach. I alluded to it in the audio. They've got 2 critical road games coming up in a couple weeks at Hendersonville and then at Gallatin. Those could be 2 slip-ups for the Bucks, but I'm not sure other than those if they're going to lose any more. So again, 22-0, 3-0 in league play, and they've beaten some good basketball teams, and they're just playing good basketball at this moment, and they've got the right mentality. So again, Beach, my number 1 team at 22-0 this year. My number 2 team, I alluded to it earlier, is Pope Prep. They're 13-5, 3-3 in league play following last night's loss to CPA on the road. But again, this is a basketball team that has all the tools, has a lot of talent. They've got a big man in Antonio Patterson that gives them a rebounding and defensive presence on the low block. They've got a really good point guard in Tristan Conger. Connor Turf, I told you, is a really good shooting guard. Joseph Bills locks down on the defensive end. They've got guys that can hit big shots. Josh Hickson hits the go-ahead game-winning 3 over Father Ryan. That wasn't his first game-winning basket of the season. So they've got a little bit of clutch gene in them as well. And so, D2, AA, it's really tough basketball. But listen, I think they are the second best team in the county behind Beach. And I don't know if it's particularly close between them and the rest of the team. Again, what Coach Charles Wade has done with the boys at Pope Prep this year has been remarkable. So again, keep an eye out for Pope Prep and what they have to do and how far they go this season. And just running down my list again, for the boys, you've got Gallatin at 10-8, Hendersonville at 12-6. Flip flop those. I apologize. Hendersonville at 3 at 12-6. 2-1, Gallatin at 10-8, 2-1, and then you got Portland, Station Camp, White House, Westmoreland, and then Merrill Hyde rounding out our rankings for this week's episode of the Full Court Press. So, again, Beach, Westmoreland, our top 2 boys and girls team. I hope you enjoyed the audio from Bree Ellis, Kip Brown, Eli Rice, and of course the interview with Westmoreland head coach EJ Perry. Again, want to thank him for joining the show, dropping some knowledge about the Lady Eagles. And hey, listen, to the guys that put out the Main Street Preps Top 15, don't forget about Westmoreland next week. That's all I've got for this week's episode of the Full Court Press podcast. Again, if you missed anything, you can go back and play this episode later on today. You can check that out on all our social media pages, whether that be Facebook or Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at Zach Womble MSP, and of course the Full Court Press podcast at FCP_MSP. Until next time, I'll see you at a gym.
You've been watching and listening to the Full Court Press podcast, covering high school sports in Sumner County with your host, Zach Womble. Follow Zach on Twitter at Zach Womble MSP, and follow the show also on Twitter at FCP_MSP. This has been a production of Main Street Media.